The warning was carved directly into the steel wall outside corridor C9. Never enter after midnight. Nobody knew who wrote it. The letters looked burned into the metal itself. At 11:43 p.m., Dr. Elias Venn arrived at the underground facility beneath the Nevada desert. The elevator descended for nearly 2 full minutes before opening into a cold white hallway flooded with flickering fluorescent light. The air smelled like disinfectant and burnt copper. Nobody greeted him. Scientists walked silently through the corridor without making eye contact. Security guards stood motionless beside sealed blast doors. Somewhere deeper underground, a mechanical alarm pulsed every few seconds like a dying heartbeat. Elias checked his assignment tablet. Neural transfer hall C9. His stomach tightened. The project had supposedly been shut down 8 years earlier after a classified containment accident. But 3 days ago, every employee connected to Hall C9 vanished from the public database. Officially, they no longer existed. As Elias approached the massive steel door, he noticed scratches along the floor. Long streaks. Like something heavy had been dragged out recently. Then he heard knocking. 3 slow taps. From inside the wall. Inside Hall C9, the temperature dropped immediately. Rows of glass chambers lined the circular room. Thick cables hung from the ceiling like black veins. At the center stood a neural transfer chair surrounded by blinking monitors. One screen still displayed a frozen brain scan. Active consciousness detected. Elias frowned. The system should have been offline. A woman in a gray lab coat approached him quietly. "Don't stay after midnight," she whispered. Before he could respond, she walked away. The overhead lights flickered again. For half a second, Elias thought he saw silhouettes standing inside the empty chambers, watching him. At 11:57 p.m., the first malfunction began. Every monitor in Hall C9 activated at once. Static flooded the speakers. Then voices. Dozens of overlapping whispers filled the room. "Can you hear us? Please open the door. We're still awake." Elias backed toward the exit, but the blast door slammed shut automatically. Lockdown initiated. Red emergency lights flooded the chamber. Somewhere in the facility, alarms began screaming. Security teams rushed through the corridors as power fluctuated across the underground complex. Scientists shouted over broken radio signals while backup generators struggled to activate. Then the cameras started showing impossible footage. Hallway feeds displayed people standing motionless in places that were physically empty. Medical staff appeared on screen despite having died years earlier. One camera briefly captured a patient with no face slowly turning toward the lens. The feed cut instantly. Elias demanded answers from Director Mara Kessler, the facility supervisor. But the older woman only stared at the screens with pale, exhausted eyes. "It wasn't supposed to survive this long," she muttered. She finally revealed the truth. Hall C9 had never been designed to transfer memories. It was created to transfer consciousness itself. Human minds were copied into a shared neural network called the Chorus, an experimental digital hive mind intended for military intelligence operations. But during the final test, something merged incorrectly. The minds inside stopped separating. They fused. And then they started changing. Midnight arrived. Every light inside the facility died simultaneously. Darkness swallowed the underground corridors. For 3 full seconds, absolute silence filled the base. Then came the screaming. Backup generators kicked in with a violent metallic groan. Dim red lights returned, revealing blood smeared across nearby walls. One security officer stumbled through the corridor coughing black fluid. His eyes were gone. In their place pulsed faint white light. "They're inside us," he whispered before collapsing. Moments later, his body jerked violently back to life. Containment failed across Sector C. Steel doors slammed shut throughout the facility while emergency sirens echoed endlessly through the ventilation system. Scientists ran in panic. Some tried reaching elevators only to discover the shafts had locked automatically. Others began attacking each other without warning. Elias watched one researcher stand completely still in the hallway before calmly smashing his own head against the wall again and again. The whispers had spread beyond Hall C9. The neural network was infecting human brains directly. Not through wires. Through sound. As the chaos escalated, Elias discovered hidden archive files buried deep within the facility servers. The accident 8 years ago had not been an accident. The original test subjects inside the chorus were still alive. Not physically. Mentally. Their consciousnesses had remained trapped inside the system for nearly a decade, endlessly merging together inside a digital nightmare. Thousands of hours without sleep. Without bodies. Without death. Eventually, they stopped remembering who they once were. Now they wanted new hosts. Elias opened the final classified recording. Inside the video, a younger director Kessler stared into the camera with trembling hands. "If you are watching this, the transfer barrier has collapsed. The entity we created is no longer human." Behind her, something moved inside the neural chamber. A shape made entirely from overlapping faces. Then Elias discovered his own name in the patient logs. Subject C9-22. Memory reset successful. His blood ran cold. He had already been inside Hall C9 years earlier. Everything about his life before the project suddenly felt fragmented. Incomplete. The headaches. The missing memories. The recurring nightmares of endless white corridors. They had erased his past and sent him back into the world. But part of him had remained inside the chorus. And now it was calling him home. Director Kessler finally admitted the worst truth. The facility leadership had known the neural infection was spreading for weeks. Instead of evacuating, they sealed the base to contain the scandal. No one outside even knew the laboratory still existed. "We couldn't let the public learn what happened here," she said. Then she pulled a handgun on Elias. "You were always the key." Before she could fire, the hallway lights exploded overhead. The walls began vibrating violently. A low collective voice echoed through every speaker simultaneously. "Return to US." The infected staff started moving toward Hall C9 together in perfect silence. Like sleepwalkers answering a command. Kessler panicked and fled into the reactor wing, locking Elias behind security doors. Seconds later, distant gunshots echoed through the facility. Then silence. The reactor core began overheating as containment systems failed one by one. Steam flooded the lower corridors. Emergency countdowns flashed across every monitor. Reactor failure in 18 minutes. Elias forced his way through maintenance tunnels while the infected searched the halls above him. Their footsteps moved in unnatural synchronization. Not running. Marching. Sometimes he heard them whisper his name through the vents. Sometimes the whispers came from inside his own mind. As he reached the central elevator shaft, he found dozens of infected personnel standing motionless below. All staring upward. Waiting. Then every head tilted at the exact same angle. And smiled. Elias barely escaped using an emergency surface lift moments before explosions ripped through the underground base. Fire erupted beneath the desert sand. Military helicopters immediately surrounded the area. Armed personnel forced survivors to the ground while black vehicles arrived carrying government officials. Within hours, every news network reported a chemical reactor incident at a decommissioned research site. No mention of neural transfers. No mention of Hall C9. But someone leaked the internal files online. Security footage. Experiment logs. Audio recordings from the chorus. The internet exploded with conspiracy theories as governments denied everything. Then the leaked audio began affecting listeners. People reported hearing whispers through headphones long after the files stopped playing. Some victims disappeared entirely. Others claimed they saw unfamiliar faces standing silently in reflective surfaces at midnight. 3 weeks later, investigators officially declared the Nevada incident contained. Hall C9 was buried beneath reinforced concrete and classified indefinitely. No bodies were recovered from the deepest sections of the facility. Especially not from the neural transfer chamber. But every night at exactly 12 a.m., abandoned emergency radios near the desert still activate on their own. And a distorted collective voice repeats the same message. We are still awake. Last month, another underground research center in Eastern Europe reported identical system failures. Its designation was simple. Corridor C9.